Yeah, hi. My name's Ian, and welcome to Path to Paradise. I thought today I'd share my story uh, in the hope that it might help somebody else. Somebody might be going through some stuff that they can relate to in my story, and find find a way out for themselves. So, back in 1993, my life was absolute hell. I was in a horrid relationship. Toxic isn't a strong enough word for it. It was horrid, and yeah, I'll take responsibility for that too. It was my choice as well. My health was appalling. I needed pethidine to cope with the uh, excruciatingly painful condition that was supposed to be incurable. And I had a back that used to spasm on me 3 or 4 times a year, probably even more, that would lay me up for 3 or 4 days at a time. As well as this, just everything in my life was falling apart, everything. And the amount of emotional pain I had was, it was, yeah, it was overwhelming. Um, I'd hit rock bottom. And in that rock bottom state, I could either top myself, but I never had the courage for that, or I needed a way out. So I remember thinking, all that I know up until this stage has got me here. So if my life is to improve in any way, shape, or form, then it's got to come from something that I do not yet know. As well as that, I wanted to know how to create a good life for myself, one that, didn't involve this horrid pain. And I wanted to know what love was. I hurt like crazy, in here, as well as I said, physical, the physical conditions that I had at that stage. So anyway, I made that decision that I wanted to know what love was, and I wanted to know how to create a better life for myself, that surely life didn't have to hurt like this. Well, within 24 hours, something occurred that showed me a new way. And it wasn't long before I'd signed up to a psychologist and also signed up for transcendental meditation and started to buy self-help books, something that I'd never thought of before. Back at that stage, I'd probably label myself as agnostic. So I never set out to be more spiritual or to be spiritual in any way, or new agey or whatever. I never set out for that. I never set out to be religious or anti-religious. No, all I wanted was a better quality of life. So that began my journey. Now, in that time, I was a single parent to 4 and 3 year old boys for a number of years. And then I moved state to just packed up and moved state to Queensland and began a life there. Now, at one stage, and soon after I moved, uh, I had the idea that with my aches and pains, my illness, my conditions, that my body was trying to tell me something. And when I knew what that was, it wouldn't have to do that anymore. So I began looking at myself. So I really, through those self-help books and the next 5 or 6 years, I really began the know thyself journey, looking deeply within. Why was I making the choices that I was making? What about me was producing or having consequences that involve so much pain, so much emotional pain and suffering? So I wanted answers to that. So as I said, that began the inner journey, and that was the beginning of something extremely transformational for me. Now, in 1999, I met a woman, and we got married, and we were together for 20 years before she thought, I don't want to be married anymore. You know, that was, like 6 years ago. And in that preceding 6 years, that woman taught me about unconditional love because I just honoured all her choices. We remained friends for a long time after that. I honoured all her choices, and yeah, wow, it was like it entered me into a whole new era. Now, also on top of this, I overcame those physical conditions. Today I have no aches and pains. I'm not on any medication, and I'm in my 70s. I'm not. I have no illness, disease, or anything like that. See, I see that the body's intelligence is so vast, so incredibly beyond the mind's capacity to understand that. And when we get out of our head, when we get out of who we think we are and that created identity, that ego identity that keeps the body out of ease, then the body will sort of come into that homeostasis, or whatever you would call it, that where the body knows best, and the body will reflect where I'm at in my own journey and where you're at in your journey. So that all cleared up. Then in that marriage, we did so much emotional work, so much inner work. It was like inner growth on steroids. And we both loved doing that. So that was the basis of our relationship. That was about inner growth. And I think by the time that my then wife had decided she'd had enough, that we'd done enough work, and that since then we have both grown in a way that was not possible in relationship. So that's that bit. Now, in 2024, my one and only daughter died suddenly. Now, by then, I'd done what was that? 30 years of inner work. So, although this was an absolute extraordinary circumstance, and probably what was originally my worst fear, that the child should die before I did, turned out to be the most transformative time of my life. See, what I did was I thought, well, this is an extraordinary event. I hope I'm not going to have to deal with this again. But what I wanted to do was honour my daughter through feeling everything at the depth that I was capable of. And that's what I did. I would sit for time after time, many times a day and right through the night, because I wasn't sleeping well, looking at what the feelings were that were coming up. By then I'd done so much inner work, I could see that it was the soul's calling. The soul calls the shots, not this physical body. There's no accidents, there's no coincidence. Everything is playing out in with an intelligence far beyond what we're capable of understanding. So in the first stages of grief, of denial and anger, I didn't have that at all. I just moved straight into the acceptance and the feeling of it. Sure, that was a hard and painful time, but it turned out to be the most transformative time of my life. Oh my God, it just took me to a whole new place. It brought me home to the heart, and that's the story. It's coming from here to here, isn't it? And that's this awakened heart. So I began operating more and more from the heart. I began to, through that time, I would examine all the choices I made that led to undesirable consequences. So whenever anything went amiss in my life, that it was an undesirable consequence, I would look at it. Why did I choose that? Where did that come from? And what I found was that this began to unravel. This idea of self, this egoic self began to unravel and allowed me to drop further and further into my heart. And this to me is what it's all about. This to me is the rock that this being is experiencing. There's a sense of self that I can't explain. It's just solid. It's there, and I let go of this egoic self. The egoic self is a prison. It's a burden. It's like carrying a huge weight on thinking that you're this, and it's fragile and it's vulnerable, and it's looking to serve its own needs. So what I do now is I focus on surrendering into the essence of who I am, that non-physical essence. So my perception of life comes through this non-physical essence. That's how I see it. I'm a human being experiencing itself through the intelligence that is within, not through this, through the intelligence within. Now, this is only good in that this intelligence comes and speaks to me through intuition or insight. So my thoughts are mainly about intuitive hits or insights, rather than telling stories about life. This happened, and my thoughts go bang, 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 and they tell a story about that happening. So nowadays, I don't focus on the event. If an event occurs, whatever that may be, it's an opportunity to come and see what's going on for me. And what I found is more and more that drops me into this exquisite place, this heartfelt center. So this is how I live now. I'm not concerned over the externals, whatever externals appear. It's an opportunity for me to know more of myself, and what a bloody journey that is, and the rewards I cannot begin to express. So these days, I live on 52 acres with 4 other people. There's one couple, all the rest of us are single. And we're a farm family. We get along like crazy. And what an idyllic life it is. We've got cows, we've got chooks, we've got llamas, and we just enjoy one another's company, and it's an amazing experience. And the property itself, I cannot begin to describe. It's on the Sunshine Coast, Queensland hinterland, green, and we live in this valley. 52 acres with a stream passing through. On the north side, so in the southern hemisphere, that's the ideal place. It's like, wow, I cannot begin to describe how good that is. As well as that, the friendships that I enjoy, with others, that, where I go and play tennis with or have a coffee with. Incredible people, Life works on every level for me, and the transformation has been beyond my wildest dreams. Now, if I can do this, you can too. Wherever you are along that painful sort of journey, you can always choose to look within. That's what it's all about. That know thyself is gold. It is really gold. It is the answer to all your dreams. It is the way to have the life that exceeds what you're capable of imagining, because that's where I live at the moment, and I never for a moment thought that I would be pain-free, and the kids I went to school with, they're not like that at all. It's more doctors and it's more physio visits than when they were 20 years younger. So there is hope. Go within. What happens, when an event occurs, I had the freedom that I find after I've uncovered the emotions and the beliefs and the perception behind that event, there's just this enormous freedom, this enormous joy and bliss, and that occurs to me quite often. I don't try and hang on to any experiences. The experience I'm having right now is the experience I'm having, and I'm good with that. So look within. That is the number one goal. Look within. Surrender. Surrender to the intelligence of life itself, because that's what you are. This non-physicalness in me is life itself having a physical experience. We're not separate, and you're not separate from life itself. Why would it dish you up anything less than exquisite uh, uh, wow, except to awaken you to this thing, to the essence of who you are? And to me, that's about becoming more human. It's like more fully a human being, that I'm living this physical experience with touch, with taste, with sunsets, with a place I live, etc. But guided through the intelligence that's within me. If I can do it, you can do it too. So I wish you all the best. And if there's anything that I can do to help you move through some of those more painful ideas and areas of your life, please, I'm only too willing to help. I wish you all the best.